Joining us now is State Senator Wendy DeBoer. She represents parts of Northwest Omaha and is joining us by Zoom because she's in Lincoln at the state capitol. Senator, thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So you are a registered Democrat in this officially nonpartisan legislature. What are priorities for Democrats this session?
Well, I can't speak for Democrats, but I can speak for those people who I work with quite frequently, and I can speak for myself. And the priorities that I see are just helping Nebraskans with affordability issues. I think that's one of the most important things that we can do right now, because we know that, right now there's a lot of things that aren't very affordable for people. So to that end, today you may have seen I prioritized my bill for the year. That's very early, but it's because I wanted to get right out there and say, this is the tone of the session. This is what is important. And that would be to continue the program that is already in place to provide child care subsidy to a whole bunch of Nebraskans that just want to work and need a safe place to send their kids and a little help to get there.
Are you concerned that a bill tied to appropriations, even if that money existed previously, will have a tough time passing this session?
I mean, I understand people who might worry about that. But like any other year, what we're doing is we're looking at priorities. What do we prioritize spending money on? And that is, of course, the decision of the legislators. And they have, a lot of things that they can look at. And once they do that, I think they see that it's the prioritization of helping people to work and our kids, and just continuing, a program that's already in place that's being very successful. It's not real hard to see that that should be a priority of everyone.
Let's talk about the budget shortfall. The number right now, $471 million. Before getting into how you think best to address it, how do you think we got here?
I mean, I've been saying on the floor for years that we have to be very careful, I think fiscally careful, about our savings account, our checking account, and in the state, we get that money from taxes. And if we get rid of all of our revenue and don't have any taxes, which is what we have really cut. I mean, the top tax bracket has been cut almost in half in the time that I've been in the legislature. I think we need to really think about where the lines are. I think there's cutting that's available. There probably always is, but we've been doing a lot of it, and I don't think we can cut our way out of the problem that we have now. So I think it's a mixture of, the same kind of affordability problems that everybody sitting around their kitchen table has. Insurance has gone up. That'll affect the costs that the state has as well. All the kinds of regular things that everybody else is worrying about as prices go up, as inflation goes up. The state's facing those as well. So some of the problem is that, some of it is the tax cuts that we've done over the last several years.
The governor has said he is going to try again to eliminate some of these sales tax exemptions. That has fallen on deaf ears in years past. Do you think there's any wiggle room there?
I don't know. I think that the bills that have come before the legislature in the past have been pretty significant changes, and they haven't been as focused as I think he would need to have them be in order for anyone to even think about doing it. And they don't buy down the sales tax rate in general. So if what he wants to do is tax more things, I think he needs to bring the sales tax down, because of course sales taxes hit Nebraskans the hardest, who are just trying to make ends meet, who are worried about affordability and worrying about those kinds of taxes. If they're targeted, maybe there's something there. If they're not targeted, then I think it just is another tax. And I don't really see why we need to raise taxes on those who are having the hardest time right now, when everybody knows how difficult people are just making ends meet in Nebraska.
For the person sitting at home this morning who maybe doesn't understand really how the legislature works at its core, they're not there every day, the budget process during this 60-day session, how much of the 60 days will be taken up by talking about the budget?
I mean, because of the budget situation that we're in right now, although you won't always see it happening on the main floor debate, that will be sort of the monkey in the room that even if you don't see it there, it's still there. So it's going to be, I think, pretty much the major topic of this entire session. This will be, something that's always, behind the scenes being talked about. The Appropriations Committee will spend a significant amount of time making their mid-biennium budget. So it's going to dominate the session.
Senator, we only have about 30 seconds left. Are there one or two more things you think will be priorities for the legislature this year?
I think that figuring out what helps Nebraska families to be able to afford everyday essentials, what helps Nebraskans to get back to work, how to grow our economy. Growing our economy, I think, is one of the best things that we can do. Also thinking about how we retain young people in the state. I think that's going to be a really important topic throughout this entire session. So growing the economy, helping young people, affordability, those are the issues.
Slow down, stop, and hopefully reverse that brain drain. Senator DeBoer, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Nebraska's governor is confident he can lower taxes and fix the budget shortfall. He'll give his address to lawmakers and outline priorities on Thursday, the 15th. Here's our conversation about what he wants out of this session.
The state of Nebraska projected to have a $471 million budget shortfall. What is your plan to address that?
Yeah, we're working very hard to run government like a business. And just so everybody gets the facts, we started the budget from last session. It started July 1, and we just finished 6 months, okay? And then what takes place in business, you start with a plan, and that plan stays the same, and you work with it. Well, because, hey, we're all committed, you got to balance the budget. Thank God we have that in our Constitution. Just so everybody understands, when the forecasting board comes in, it changes the goalposts 4 months later. So today, where we're at, 6 months, we just finished the first 6 months of this fiscal year. We're at 98.65% of the revenue of the adjusted forecasting board. So just so everybody knows, we've got over right at 200 million more in revenue from last year. Okay, just to, and then but the one that really matters then is where we at, and we have $2.1 billion in the bank between our general and cash reserve fund. So what does that mean for the future? That means we're in really, really strong position today. And we have been working very, very hard. We started back in June with our heads, again, running government like a business. And we are looking at every business practice, every operational decision-making, and finding extraordinary amounts of inefficiency and opportunities that improve services for Nebraska, but just like business, decrease costs. And in this next two-year biennium, we will find $1 billion, and we're virtually there. We'll be working on our budget, presenting that. We're doing all the practical, common sense things. We have more FTEs in Nebraska government today. Why? Because we can run, anybody that does contracts in business knows they spend more money. Your job is to build your team, build your culture, believing in efficiency, and we are getting rid of every silly contract out there, growing and having a culture of public service, public servants doing good for Nebraska.
There are people that believe the corporate tax cuts, the income rate cuts are playing into this shortfall.
Yeah, no way. We're overtaxed. We have to get better, and we have to broaden our sales tax. Go to South Dakota, zero income tax. They have property tax where we want to get to. How do they run government? They have a broad-based sales tax.
You talked about sales taxes. Yeah. You have been met with a lot of deaf ears when trying to get rid of exemptions. Do you think you can push that through?
Yeah, I tell you what, you learn a lot. In business, it's really simple. When we have a decrease in revenue, we all understand that we have to have an equal decrease in expense to stay in business. I've asked where, with all those exemptions, show me where government cut spending. Not one example. So the politicians have been duped, and it was nothing but a tax shift. And when people start really understanding that, okay, that's why we are number 3 in the United States of America property tax.
So is that the crux of your property tax relief plan again for this year?
You know, it's a base. We have to fund K-12 education, not run it. Same thing we did with, so all of the community colleges run their community colleges. They don't have to worry about being a taxing authority. They have their property taxes as their backstop for their fixed assets. The plan's exactly the same. K-12 education has to be strong. It has to be funded. The Constitution's clear. Nebraska's supposed to be doing it, not property taxes.
People have wondered if you're going to push toward redrawing congressional maps at all.
It's not on the radar.
Why not?
You know, that's done it over X years and done every 10 years, and I think we're five years in it. And you know, I think I understand the landscape of Nebraska, and you know that's what the plan is at this stage.
Will you still push for winner take all?
We're one of 2 states that decide who the President of the United States of America is differently than the other 48 states. If people really understand that simple, basic concept, there's nobody that can think that that makes sense. So it's a gigantic priority, and I can count. We got to win elections in the spring. We got to win elections in the spring so we can get it fixed.
Talked about a lot about tax policy, elections. What are your other major priorities this year?
Certainly kids. There's a couple things that are extraordinarily important that we solve. You know, I had an incredible conversation with a teacher last spring. This teacher said that I've known a long time, said, Jim, I don't know if I can keep doing this much longer. What's the problem? She said, you know, I'm in school with kindergartners, first, second graders. And I'm in schools where kids are coming in and double flipping us teachers off and saying F you more than thank you. The behavior's out of control and we have nothing we can do. And every superintendent said, yeah, that's the way it is. Where there has to be accountability. We cannot allow that kind of behavior to take place in our schools. So we're gonna change the legislation, make that happen, number one. Number two, we have a reading problem in Nebraska. We are not where we need to be. In my view of the world, every kid needs to be able to read by second grade. And we're advancing kids that can't read beyond third grade. If there's the behavioral issues, and if a kid's having problems in early and second grade, we have to be taking action. And everybody's got to understand, we just can't keep passing these kids on.
How do you change state law to address behavioral and lack of reading abilities?
Well, I think that the first step would be to tell the superintendents, tell the educators, look, there's no more just keep advancing, whether you have to meet the reading standard or you don't advance. So when you say that, people will start solving the problem.
So what does that action look like?
I can't stand government. But we just got to set and say, look, kids aren't going to get advanced. And then we're going to take it out and say, look, parents have to have accountability in this. You know, parenting is not a right to let your kid do whatever they want.
Will anything change about your priorities because you're running for re-election?
No way possible. Has nothing to do with it. When somebody tells me I can't vote for that because I might not win re-election, it makes me want to throw up.
Still ahead, from how a bill becomes a law to who really holds the power. Get the facts on Nebraska's Unicamera.